do it. Whenever I get writer's block in songs, or in this book of confessions, I listen with my heart to hear Paul, John, or George telling me what to write. For this telling book, lately, I've been hearing a lot of John. To get his side of the story, he needs fair treatment. If you've noticed by now that much of what I've written has been uncharacteristically sympathetic to others' perspectives, that is why. By this point, some readers must have wondered undoubtedly why I would explain songs by John and George that have directly attacked me. Well, now you know. To clear the channel, I must cover their perspectives. Otherwise, they keep pestering or encouraging me, which makes it harder for me to focus on material that I want to write. I have explained 2 songs that John keeps emphatically demanding that I explain better. I thought I finished discussing them, but apparently not well enough for his satisfaction. I did not reveal his perspective. Here I go with them again, but in more detail. The songs by John are All You Need Is Love, and one with some mild ties to that one, Good Morning, Good Morning. I shall also include my own, The End. Love's a funny thing, in that those who give it the least feel as though they possess it the least. Our sensing it entails having it. We only feel love when we find it within us. Otherwise, we cannot feel very much of it from others. Here's what I wrote about that balance. In the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. I use the word take because it works so well as a parallel to make, and use the word make because of its sexual connotations, using sex as a metaphor of divine love. When we make love in the procreative sense, we co-create with God. All is created as and through love. You may imagine exceptions, such as that hate also creates. However, hate, like darkness, is not real. You cannot observe hate. Just as darkness is merely the absence of light, hate is only a perceived absence of love. Light and love are real. Darkness and hatred are illusions in our minds. Darkness and hatred are unable to create because they are not real. A sense of hate is a call for love. Since everyone needs love, we act out and blame others when we lack love awareness. Our own inability to feel loved energizes that need, making our sense of lack that much stronger. That's why we experience hate. It's evidence of our own fears stemming from our own perceived lack of love. We may say we hate some dictator or criminal for their injustices. However, what we really feel is that those individuals have insufficient love for us or for others. We may feel threatened when we sense a lack of love. Since none of us are completely whole ourselves, we project our insecurities and sense shortages of love onto others. When people act towards us in ways that make us angry, we tend to blame our anger on them. Nevertheless, what we are really feeling inside is that the person disrespected us or was not very loving. Our anger is merely our way of interpreting our own call for love, blaming emotions on others. Nevertheless, since we are all made of that same infinite love, it is not possible actually to literally lack love. Love is what we are and what everything is. What we lack is our awareness of love, not love itself. The love-minded do not find lack. Flowers love. They seek connection to sunlight, loving nutrients from the soil and water. That attraction, or love, helps them receive it all to thrive. You and I do the same thing. We grow by what we love, or by what we attract to us. However, we only attract whatever resonates with what is already in us. That is why loving people are able to feel unbridled love from others. It's in our nature to feel others' love because, resonating with it, we naturally feel in others what's in ourselves. The love you take is equal to the love you make. The end. If we feel hurt by others' lack of love, our lack is within. John sings of my lack of love. However, each time that he or I offended the other, we could have looked within rather than blaming the other. If he had done so, he may have discovered that what he was actually upset about was that I was not Paul. If he had thought of it that way, and realized that I, not being Paul fully, could not possibly be Paul's substitute on that emotional level, filling the hole in love left by Paul's demise. With that awareness, love might have been more readily realized. John, George, and Ringo wanted that loving bond of Paul. That's what made them all so crazy about him. That's why so many Beatles songs feature their vocalized pain of missing him. I was right there, but was not Paul in that sense. I had amazing talent to enliven their music, but could not replace the love or life of their friend. People are not replaceable. Although I will cut from Billy's back everything in this chapter before this point, being more about love than about Paul's death, I will include in it Beatles Enlightenment, which is a collection of love-centered growth, spirituality, and philosophy that we tried to teach through our songs. Those of you who enjoy such concepts will not like the darker content that's also not for general readership. It's only in the unabridged memoirs of Billy Shears. Judgment is an egoic product of fear that undermines love. All throughout the song, All You Need Is Love, John judges me, saying I do not have enough love. Whether or not he's right, that judgment, which persisted for years, made it even harder for him to feel the love that I possessed. I was doing my best, as was he. Each line of that song carries the same repeated message. John was saying that no matter what I ever do, or no matter what I attempt to do, it makes little difference since I do not do it with sufficient love. It says that I cannot do anything that can't be done, and that all I really need to work on is love. Singing You Can Learn How to Be You in Time alerted Paula's dead enthusiasts. They say John let them know that I had not at that point obtained the level of Paulness that John had hoped I would obtain. The entire song carried that same critical message. The song found fault with all I tried to do. Very matter-of-factly, John states the self-evident throughout the song, and by so doing he conceals his entire message. He sings, nothing you can sing that can't be sung, nothing you can say but can learn how to play the game, it's easy. From these words, at the start, he identifies the one to receive this offered advice. It is to the singer trying to sing what can't be sung in order to say what can't be said. Very plainly, to all those in the know, he was singing to me. However, in so doing, John also had an essential message for the world. The matter that troubles me the most about explaining all the underlying meaning is that I do not want to ruin the more important message to everyone. I'll provide an overview of the message to the world after I explain how he meant it for me personally. Vital to an accurate historical interpretation, you must know what was going on with our work. Being engaged already in creating our magical mystery tour album, which was being interrupted to do some interviews and so forth for a television special promoting Sgt. Pepper's, which was now delayed so that we could do this song for our world, we had our hands full. All You Need Is Love, written in May 1967, focused on Sgt. Pepper's, which would be released in less than 2 weeks, and on Magical Mystery Tour, which John hoped we would complete much faster. Letting me know that the Mystery Tour need not have another Sgt. Pepper's level of effort, taking a half year again to complete, he sang that I could never accomplish anything extraordinary anyway. All I only need to work on is love. He says I should not waste our time trying to accomplish the impossible. Unless I learn to love, I'm wasting effort. One of my impossible objectives was to use our new set of clues to make it so obvious about Paul that the world would understand without any of us ever breaking our confidentiality contracts. However, there's nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Even with the best of clues, there's nothing you can say to make it clear without violating the non-disclosure agreement. What I can do is to learn how to play the game. As in chess, I could learn to be the queen, filling in for the checkmated king. With Sgt. Pepper's,
I wanted to make an album that had the power to change the world. John sang that it could not be done before he realized that it had been. In John's next line, he connects the song to his Good Morning, Good Morning. In that song, he sings Nothing to Do to Save His Life. Now he continues it. No one you can save that can't be saved. He had sung Nothing to Say, but What a Day, referring to John's stupid Bloody Tuesday on the 13th of September 1966 in West Germany. John recalls Brian Epstein asking about me in the next line, singing, How's your boy been? In the following line, the you is actually Brian and me. Giving the answer, John sings, Nothing to do, it's up to you. It was for Brian to make me the new boy, and up to me to play the game. John, more accepting than happy about it, had the same level of enthusiasm that he held all along. He could not talk openly about his objections to our deal, but he could go along with it all for Paul's sake and to obey EMI. I've got nothing to say, but it's okay. All the good morning, good morning, good mornings reflects John's greeting Tuesday morning with Brian's telegram. The last good, like Paul, was cut off early. John got the word that early morning. Being in mourning, good morning was also a good morning wordplay. Our Beatles work was an unhappy chore for John without Paul. Recording rubbed it in. That's why he utters, going to work, don't want to go, feeling low down. Feeling alone without Paul to work with, and referring to Paul's death in the street, John sings, and you're on your own when you're in the street. After a while, you start to smile, now you feel cool. John feels better with his various diversions. Next, he visits Paul and George's old Liverpool Institute. Then you decide to take a walk by the old school. He goes there and sees that, like the band and all else, the school went on without Paul. He seems to be unmissed. Nothing has changed, it's still the same. With that great loss, it felt as though everything should be different without Paul, but nothing has changed. Again, he could not really mention it, but attempts to have acceptance. I've got nothing to say, but it's okay. Giving balance to my Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock, she's leaving home. John is out at 5 o'clock in the evening, picturing people running around, going on with their lives, totally oblivious to the tragedy that absolutely devastated John's life. He says, everywhere in town is getting dark. 5 o'clock was sunset when John wrote this song. But the real darkness was his depressed mood. Those running around contrast John's deep despair and Paul's death. Everyone you see is full of life. Feeling disheartened, John goes home, has tea, and watches television. This was John's way of relaying his depression without actually revealing it. He was more open about his life-hating despair later. Near the opening of the song, John says, call his wife in. That reference balanced the wife in It's Time for Tea and Meet the Wife. Paul had no wife. His fiancée, Jane, was called to the morgue. Near the end, the wife reference is about watching the BBC sitcom Meet the Wife. By then, John got along better with Yoko than with his wife, Sin. He had challenges with Cynthia, but his misery over Paul, along with Yoko's forcefulness, finished off the marriage. John projected Paul's void onto Sin, as if she were responsible for John's emptiness. John found fulfillment from Yoko, whose tactical work was unfortunate for Cynthia and their son, Julian. John became estranged from both. I felt bad for little Julian, who was a delightfully bright child and enjoyable to be around. I played with him more than John did. Julian and I have been good friends all along. Now, as a man, he is largely in the fine image of his father, which is comforting for those of us who miss John. Yet even more so, Julian is very much his own person. Although he represents his father well in some situations, I would rather everyone think of him as Julian than as John's son. Julian also has a lot to offer. During the song's next verse, we find an example of the disregard John had for his wife and child. It's also about Paul driving Cutie, watching the skirts you start to flirt now you're in gear, go to a show you hope she goes. John was in such pain from his difficult childhood, and again from Paul's demise, that he could not function on any meaningful level of love. Just imagine how John offended Sin, Julian, and others by withholding his affection from them whilst broadcasting all over the world, "All you need is love." John made himself love's messenger, but refused to receive or give love meaningfully with those who were the most significant in his life. He was too tainted by his emotional pain to function without his handler. Singing "All You Need Is Love" made him sound like he had it all together, but he did not. The message is fine, but that messenger was too wounded to live up to it. He believed it in his head, but he could not find it in his heart. Our World was this planet's first international, live, satellite television production. Each country rotated their transmission time. For the UK's turn, our Beatles song to the world was at 8:54 p.m. on the 25th of June 1967. In all, 90 nations presented acts to the planet. Participating nations had representatives unite on air by performing their separate segments to nearly 500 million viewers worldwide. It's the largest audience this world has ever known. Imagine singing live to 400 to 500 million people. I was thrilled and amazed that the show was possible and that I would be on it as a Beatle. Creating a spectacle of celebration, we invited special friends to join us on that historical world stage for this new and exhilarating broadcast experience. At Abbey Road, surrounded by our friends on the floor, we sat on stools. Our festive party group included Mike McCartney, Jane Asher, Patty Harrison, Keith Moon, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Marion Faithfull, Graham Nash, Hunter Davis, Eric Clapton, Gary Leeds, and others. It was a great party, full of talent and good feelings. Most people had not until then considered such a show possible. The world became smaller when it occurred. This historical event was some 25 months before an even bigger show with the over-the-top American moon landing. Our World was topped by millions more viewers of NASA's astronomical production. Ours had better music, theirs had special effects. They both carried loud and powerful messages of world peace, ours by music and words, theirs by their world dominance. After we sang "All You Need Is Love," the US proved their superiority in space technology, necessarily suggesting, behind their most deliberate words for world peace, "We can strike any of you, don't tread on us." NASA's production was for peace or intimidation. Their movie was a great success. In preparation for the Our World broadcast, we pre-recorded a rhythm track. I hate to admit we needed that help, keeping us all on track while we played along and sang to a few 100 million stargazers. Using that track was George Martin's idea. He knew we were not ready to do the show without having that little assistance. That show was the first of our 2 live performances from that building. All You Need Is Love had 2 primary messages. To the world, we were saying that they did not need to worry about anything else in their lives if only they had love. It's a beautiful message. Singing it with that message of love in mind felt good. I felt that we were telling the world something profound. Equally so, the song was directly aimed at me, telling me that all of my diligence at getting every track right on Sgt. Pepper's was meaningless. By the time we got through all the takes and cutting this part to overdub that part, etc., they became resentful about working with me. They were intensely resistant. I see that I'm not always easy to work with, and I'm far from having the Paul attitudes that they enjoyed before me. They were critical of my perfectionism, but enjoyed the levels of excellence that came with it. The unparalleled success of our albums added to each of their frustrations because they could see how vital I was to them, but preferred to have me there for show. They saw what I was doing, but would have rather kept it all as their own thing with their friend. As Peppers changed the world, they gawked about its required 700 studio hours. Excellence takes time, I told them. They had recorded their first album in one 12-hour session. Continuing John's lyrics of how I cannot do anything beyond my own abilities, countering me telling them that I go beyond my natural abilities with Paul's help, he also suggests that I accept my situation. Confucius says, "No matter where you go, there you are." Likewise, another says, "Whate'er thou art, play well thy part." What I would add is that I would not be here in Paul's position if it were not how God, fate, or the universe intended, and that as long as this is my performance role, I should play it as well as I can. John says my recording excellence is pointless, that I don't need to be a studio Superman, but need to work on love. My exceptional works, John says, matter less than a loving heart. Well, I do not find fault with that part. Know where you can be that isn't where you're meant to be, it's easy. I say, let it be, but I've got a job to do and I do it well. Last of all, the song concludes with softer parts that most people miss. Yes, he's dead. Whoa, oh yeah, we loved you, yeah, 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 we loved you, yeah, yeah, yeah. That is me there, voicing that part as though I was singing that old She Loves You hit. Since my voice was not the exact voice that people had heard years before, there's been confusion about who sang it this time, but you can be sure it was I who did the yeah, 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 as a reflection of their Paul days, when writing and recording was simple, before all my Paul polish, or Billy Shine, as John and George often put it. Until I came along, they said recording was jovial, but I ruined it